You're watching the Global Goals Studio, and right now we're talking about COVID-19's impact on the UN's Sustainable Development Goals with UN Development Program Head Achim Steiner.
Sustainable cities and communities is the 11th SDG, and around the world, COVID has had a real impact on some cities where density can make residents more vulnerable to the disease. Mr. Steiner, is this an opportunity for all of us to rethink what sustainable urban life might look like?
Well, the pandemic has been a brutal reminder that however much we might be living in cities, in apartments, in places where we can't even open windows anymore, urban architecture has really sometimes isolated us from nature and the environment in extraordinary ways. And here we are at a moment where a virus in a market that probably has its origins somewhere in wildlife can literally jump across the world and lead to 30 million unemployed people in the United States. So I think it has been a moment where we both realize how inextricably we are linked to things that happen out there in the environment, but also how much more we must pay attention to the sustainability Achilles heel of our time. This is a moment where I think environment is not just about protecting some spaces, it is about understanding how with 7-8 billion people, how can we live on this planet, feed everyone, have all the things that we associate with the 21st century, but also replenish our ecosystems, nature-based services that are so often ignored and are not valued in our economic indices. That is, I think, the moment that many people are really rethinking what it means to live in a 21st century sustainable world. And climate change clearly is going to be one of the key drivers in that public debate.
Mr. Steiner, you've talked a good amount in the past about the fourth industrial revolution, the rise of digital solutions, artificial intelligence, and other technologies. Do you think technology can drive sustainability, or is it one of these sort of excuses that people wheel out that high tech can solve our basic problems, so we don't need to do the hard stuff?
Well, in many ways, as head of UNDP, the last 2 years have been a very interesting journey for me and the organization, because I think we have arrived at a point where, to put it in a slightly oversimplified way, the future of development is digital. Both in the way that we look at its potential for opportunities and possibilities, connecting hundreds of millions of people into the financial system, but also, as the UNDP Human Development Report last year pointed out, it could be a great determinant of greater inequality also, because if people are excluded from the digital economy and half the world's population still has no access to internet and broadband, that economy that is now galloping forward into that fourth industrial revolution narrative may leave a lot of people behind. So for UNDP, for the UN, for our Secretary General, digital cooperation in relation to both development, but also our ability to manage resources. Renewable energy grids can be run better. The planet can be monitored better. Citizens can monitor how their money that they essentially own in our financial institutions is invested more transparently. So many possibilities have opened up. In that sense, digital finance is also a key asset in the context of digitalization that I think will be, if used in the right way, a great accelerator towards new innovations.
Mr. Steiner, you just mentioned that digital divide. How do you think that we can ensure that high tech actually goes around the world in a way that's both equitable and sustainable for everyone?
Well, first of all, the use and development of a lot of software and applications is no longer confined to what were traditionally sort of the digital infrastructure centers, be it in the US or be it in China. In fact, some of the greatest innovations in using digital platforms are emerging out of Africa and many developing countries. So I think a key issue right now is going to be finance and infrastructure on the one hand, because if people are not connected, they don't have access to broadband, they don't have fiber optic cables, including in rural areas, in the slums, in areas where people don't have the money to buy themselves into that economy, we're going to lose out. The second area, I think, is going to be the ability to use digital to also help people in an entrepreneurial sense. We see so much innovation. We see so many startups. Things are possible today that were unimaginable just a few years ago for new entrants into the market. And that is going to be one of the key areas that I think we in UNDP are investing heavily in, including with the accelerator labs that we have launched.
Achim Steiner, sadly we have to leave it there. This has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for joining us in the Global Goals Studio in what must be the busiest week of the year for you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great to join you. Bye-bye.
You're watching the Global Goal Studio. Stay with us.